Now let us begin the first session, the role of shared data in building resilience. This session will set the stage by highlighting why shared data is central to the resilience building efforts. We will hear from the experts on how governments and institutions are leveraging integrated data systems to better understand the risks and to shape policy and to respond to complex disruptions across the sectors. Please welcome our distinguished speakers for this session. We will hear from Dr. Yu Jung-won, the director at the National Information Society Agency, Dr. Kim Jung-wook, the director at Korea Development Institute, and Mr. Seth Ayers, the senior digital specialist and co-lead of the Green Digital team at the World Bank. Now let me invite Dr. Yu to the podium for his presentation.
Good morning again. It is pleasure to share the Korea experience in building the resilient digital government through the effective data sharing. Let's begin by looking at the key policies and some Korea experience. Korea has made a strong process in open data. Since 2013, over 74,000 data sets have been released by public institutions. And in the private sector, open data has been used over 43 million times and leading to about 3,000 private new services. And to support this, 169 data standards have been established, and among them, 97% of open data is now machine readable. These efforts show how Korea is using open data to drive innovation and improve the public services. For example, startups have developed new services based on the public data set in weather and mobility, healthcare, and something other public data set. This slide shows how Korea data policy has evolved over time. In the early years, from the late 1980 to early 2000s, the Korea focused on the building basic administrative data set and digitalizing the government operations through the e-government initiative. From 2013, the focus shifted to the opening of the public data. The government launched the open data portal and began fostering a big data industry to enable the data sharing and reuse. Since 2017, the Korea has moved toward the data-driven government. 2020, the Data-Based Administration Act, Korea institutionalized the data sharing and innovation across the public sector. In short, the Korea data policy has processed from data for internal use to sharing data for the innovation, and now to data as a core driver of the digital governance and economic growth. This slide shows the data law of the Korea over time. In 1998, the data was disclosed only upon request to promote transparency. In 2013, data became open by default to support citizens and business. And 2020, with the data-driven administration law, the data is now shared by default across the public agency to improve the decision-making and service delivery. It reflects Korea's evolution from disclosure to openness to active data sharing within government. And I summarized the key element of the open government data policy. Releasing high value, previously non-closed data set within a 3-year plan. And second, the mandating inter-agency data sharing under the 2020 data-based administration law, and supporting private sector used through the public-private partnership, and monitoring the data quality and used through the across the sector evaluation commitment. These steps aim to build a more data-driven and collaborative government. Now I'd like to show some Korea example. And then this slide explains how data sets are shared within the Korea government. Data sharing across government agencies take place in the three main steps. First, user can search for available data set in the Common Utilization Data Registration System. And through the metadata system, they can view the metadata even for the data set are not yet disclosed. And if needed data isn't shared, they can submit a request to the relevant agency. And if the request is denied, user may appeal to the data mediation committee. This process helped promote transparency and efficient data use across the public institution. This mechanism helped eliminate the data silos between ministry and enables to interagency collaboration. This slide shows how Korea used open government data to improve disaster response services. I choose some good experience and example. Using data like a fire dispatch record and 911 center location, the government built analysis model. After processing and normalizing the data, the machine learning is applied to identify the fire-prone area. And finally, the results are visualized on the map to help local government adjust the placement of extinguishers and safety facilities. This model is applied not only in the disaster response, but also welfare services and crime prevention and facility management, and so on. And another example shows how open government data is used to improve the public safety services. Government officials log into the system and select the area where CCTV installation is needed. They can then view the relevant data set, such as population, housing types, and existing CCTV coverage. And this allows them to make the data-driven decision about where surveillance is most needed to enhance safety. It is a practical example of how open government data support smart and responsive public service design. Using data such as crime report, population, and current CCTV coverage, the system calculates the CCTV vulnerability index. The red area on the map represents a region with high vulnerability and low coverage. And this helps local government decide where to install the new CCTV camera to enhance the public safety. It is a clear example of data-driven policy making in action. Okay, today I represent some policies and some example about the sharing data in Korea. And Korea digital resilience begins with open data. And thank you very much for the kind attention.
Thank you, Dr. Yu, for the insightful presentations. Now I would like to invite Dr. Kim from KDI. Thank you.
Thank you, Ayang. Good morning. So I'd like to present some lessons and some of the key takings from the knowledge sharing program in KDI. So knowledge sharing program is a dedicated program to the developing countries over 2 decades. So we are helping some developing countries in policy recommendations as well as other areas, important agendas such as digitalization or climate change issues, of course, public administrations or investment management like that. So we have some changing in the topics in recent era. That means at the initial stage of knowledge sharing program, like 20 years ago, so most of the projects were focused on the public administration or policies and somewhat infrastructure implementation or management schemes. Now, in 5 years from this moment, the topics were changing dramatically. I mean, public health due to the pandemic and green growth or climate change issues along with the digitalization. So we are helping Polish government, for example, in current year, for the digitalization for the SMEs and startups. So that is somewhat brand new from the perspective of knowledge sharing program, because digitalization or AI technology, those things are at the front area, even in the developed countries, including Korea, United States, or United Kingdom. So mobilizing and utilizing the expertise or experiences is not that easy. I mean, we need we should accumulate some experiences or evidence based upon the global the experiences and Korean context, so that we can utilize those things in delivering, making some deliverable outcomes to the developing countries. However, AI, for instance, is somewhat really brand new, and it's changing with a great speed. So it's really hard for us to get good lessons deliverable to the developing countries. So that's what we are struggling and how we are struggling in daily life. But for the utilizing data sharing for the resilience is something we can tell from our past experience for sure. Yeah, data is important to prepare and be ready for the climate change issues, aiming for the higher level of the resilience, of course. And Asian Pacific regions are most vulnerable and to the flood, inundation, and severe dryness. So those drought and flood are challenging to the countries over the regions. Also, the global context is similar. So due to the climate change and climate crisis, if you insist, we need some of the data fortification or readiness in taking care of those issues. For instance, we need improve risk anticipation, if any. Then we make early warning to the citizens or peasants in the impacted areas, so that they can evacuate on time and in time, for instance. And also, we should enable rapid coordinated responses based upon the data. And also, we should support inclusive recovery after some disasters or those events happened. So anticipation and right response on time and recovery. Those things are, of course, based upon the data. And data is not just the owned and managed by one country. Rather, it should be shared and it should be arranged. It should be analyzed, of course, to get a right direction for the response, anticipation, and recovery. And there are enablers and barriers in scaling the shared data. So, for instance, key enablers include policy and legal foundations, so solid legal framework, or some basis in order to get a harmonized and coordinated response based upon the shared data is necessary. And the other thing is institutional coordinations. So who is taking the lead and who will be responsible for those measures and collecting data and analysis. And also investment in digital infrastructure is needed. Like a couple of years ago, I was requested by the World Bank in analyzing the digital readiness in Cambodia in justice system. And they request some of the higher level of digitalization. However, we found out that they are not ready in infrastructure. And they request some laptops and some of the digital equipped gadgets rather than entire digitalization or digital transformation. And because all the criminal records are written on the logbook rather than in Excel files. So, by investment, by considering the big roadmap toward the whole digital transformation, we recommend some of the steps, small steps in mobilizing infrastructure rather than just throw all the advanced technologies based upon the advanced and developed countries. So they need infrastructure built up to collect the data and assess the data and analyze those data for the ultimate goal. But we have barriers as well. So fragmented standards and lack of metadata governance, of course. So utilizing sharing the data is challenging because every data set is fragmented, it's not at a common format. So we need some strategies in streamline those data collection and data processing, of course. And institutional inertia and capacity gaps at subnational or local, even municipality and regional level is another barriers and challenging components. And ensuring ethical use of data and avoiding digital exclusion is another barrier. So we live in an era of AI, artificial intelligence, and intelligent augmentation. But last year, most of the challenging parts is, and the dialogue is around who owns the data and who has the authority or authorship in the final outcome of the AI. That means when some of the documents or images, even some of the contents are generated by the AI, then who owns it? And who has responsibility or who has the ownership of those ones? Now, the entire dialogue moves to the data itself. So who has the access to the data and who manages the data and who owns the data rather than the outcome of the data generation or data processing. So data protection issues are more demanding than other things in current status. So utilizing and sharing data is necessary. However, we need to ensure some safe way and secure way to get right data on time and processing the data, preventing the maluse of the data, of course. So that is another challenging part in data sharing for the resilience. And we have digital platform governance, which was explained already, so I'm going to skip it. And I'm going to introduce one of the knowledge sharing program as I introduced earlier. So lessons from the knowledge sharing program in utilizing data. So leveraging technology for flood and drought risk management in the lower Mekong River basin. It is a long name though. It was implemented from 2020 to the 2023. So it's a multi-year plan and policy recommendation to the Mekong River Commission. So it's a regional approach rather than country to or G2G approach. So sharing data is mandated from those ones because river flows from this country along that country and to this country. So regional cooperation along with the sharing data is necessary for this one. So we utilize AI technology, for instance, forecast some flood, and when flood is anticipated, we make a warning to the residents and tourists, peasants, so that they can move out of the impacted or areas. So that is one of the outcome of the policy consultation from our institute. So utilizing big data and AI technology, we have somewhat appropriate or on-time warning system implemented, and that based upon the shared data over the region, of course. So it's integrated, automated data, and multi-country system to manage shared climate risks included and suggested, and we proudly announced that those system is established in right time, and also real-time data sets available and open to the general citizens and the policymakers, also expertise as well. So those things are already the outcome of our knowledge sharing program. Now I'd like to elicit lessons from the knowledge sharing program. So key lessons are data quality is fundamental. I mean, real-time interoperable systems are essential for shared river basins. So it's general and applicable to the other data sharing, of course. We need data, not just data, we need interpretable data, high quality data, rather than just bunch of the useless data on the ground. That means we need formats, we need leadership, we need expertise in utilizing and analyzing those ones. We need to interpret the data, for sure, because we have, we live plenty of or too large the information era. However, the useful data or high quality data is somewhat limited. And in taking of the resilience issues from the environmental issues or political issues, even global value chain issues, we need somewhat high quality data in making decisions in right manner and in right time. So we need high quality data, which is really essential. And also AI or other advanced technology is complement rather than just replacement or substitute. That means we should cooperate with the machines or technology with the human resources, because human resources can utilize those technology rather than just be substituted by the machines or technology or programs or algorithms. So we should co-work with machines or technologies for sure in dealing with the data, of course. Institutional capacity and corporations are key enablers, as I said. So real-time data sharing among those countries remains somewhat limited. It's a limitation, however, it's happening. And step by step, we enhance those data sharing with a roadmap. And in near future, I'm pretty sure that the ultimate or ideal stage of the data sharing in taking of those climate change issues in Mekong River basins will be delivered, and it's evident soon. And stronger regional cooperation, shared governance platforms, and capacity building programs are essential and vital. Last year, we hosted a seminar in DC with the World Bank, KGGTF, is about the green growth, and not just regional ones, rather in the context of place is needed. For instance, in dealing with the Amazon, the space of the Amazon is somewhat shared by the countries. So one specific sovereignty or country cannot do the right measure in taking of the climate change issues or development issues as well. Whether we need some of the inter-regional or multi-countries the level approach to take care of those issues from the example of the Mekong River basins or Danube River ones, even Amazon zones. So those are somewhat necessary approach for the institutional capacity and corporations for sure. So now I'd like to conclude my presentation. So resilience is not built in isolation. So data is strategic asset. So we need to share the data, but in the right manner, not just collecting data and chipping those ones in a basket. Rather, we should arrange it, and we should analyze it. We should interpret it in the right manner. And collaboration matters. It's not deniable, of course. And technology and governance issues, especially in dealing with AI, is must do. And big data and digital platforms can scale up the solutions and taking of the climate change issues over the regions, of course. And now we need knowledge sharing, not just provision of the Korean example to the developing countries, accumulating evidence from the United States or other advanced countries to other regions. Rather, we should share the errors. We should share some lessons and enhance our understanding and getting some right approach chosen for the clear purpose that is needed for the knowledge sharing and capacity building for the over the globe. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kim. Now, lastly, I would like to invite Dr. Ayers for his presentation. And I should have mentioned earlier today, but please feel free to use the receiver for simultaneous translation.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and to our Korean partners for hosting, for the KGGTF for their support, for the work that we're doing on the shared data platform. As mentioned, my name is Seth Ayers. I work at the World Bank in the Digital Vice Presidency, along with Zaki. In the Digital Vice Presidency, we have a unit specifically called Green Digital. And so what we think about when we talk about green digital is essentially two elements. In the World Bank, we make a lot of investments in digital infrastructure. So we address issues around connectivity, data infrastructure investments. And when we make those investments with countries, we want to make sure that that infrastructure is built in a way that is both resilient and sustainable. So we think about ways in which to design infrastructure that can be resilient to a changing climate. And then also, how do we develop infrastructure, especially data infrastructure, which we know is very energy intensive, how to design it in ways to be more energy efficient. So that's on the infrastructure side. The other area that we focus on, and what we're talking about here today, is more on the application or use side of things. So then we also look at issues around greening with digital. So how do we use digital solutions to make communities that are vulnerable to climate change more resilient? And then also, how do we think about embedding digital solutions in other sectors like energy and transport to make them both more efficient and more sustainable? So some of these statistics, I'm going to start with sort of a bit of a broader overview of how we think about resilience in the World Bank and from a digital perspective as well. So as you may be aware, about 20% of the world is at severe risk of a climate event, to be impacted by severe weather. And as our Jason mentioned, our res rep here in Korea, the percentage of people impacted in East Asia alone and the economic impact is substantial. So how do we think about helping 20% of the world's population who's at severe risk? So not just general risk, but severe risk of a severe weather event. So one of the things that we learned as part of COVID is that for those countries that had digital systems in place, so if you have good connectivity, you have access to data sharing platforms, data infrastructure, those countries were able to deliver services to 3 times the number of individuals than those countries without that digital infrastructure in place. So being connected, having data, and being able to deliver services virtually is essential to being resilient. What this data shows is that, unfortunately, those countries that are at the most severe risk of severe weather events happen to be those countries that also have the least amount of digital connectivity and infrastructure. So if you look in the upper left-hand corner, you can see those countries that are at highest risk of severe weather events, climate hazards. And then those happen to be also the countries that have the least amount of connectivity, the least number of people online. So without having that connection, it's very difficult to enhance resilience. So there are 2 big gaps that at the World Bank and within the Digital Vice Presidency that we're working to try to close in order to really leverage digital solutions to enhance resilience. One of those is that there's still about 1/3 of the world's population that is not connected to the internet. So 2.6 billion people are still offline. In addition, there's less than 20% of emerging markets that have modern data infrastructure. So when we talk about all of the promise of AI and emerging applications, if you don't have connectivity and you don't have data processing capabilities, you don't have AI. And so these are fundamental challenges that we're trying to address through lending and investments that are then going to unlock that potential to enhance the resilience of communities around the world. So This is what we call our digital house. It's a bit of how we think about some of the different layers around the digital ecosystem to enhance resilience. So I spoke quite a bit about the need to address the digital foundations, the infrastructure, both on the connectivity side as well as on the data processing capabilities. Another key layer is the digital enablers. This comes into digital IDs, which we heard a bit about, some of the AI and data sharing capabilities. And then building on those layers, you get to applications. And I'm going to share a few of those examples, and then this afternoon we'll do a bit of a deeper dive specifically into some of the work that we're doing around shared data platforms, both in the Maldives and Sierra Leone, and where there's opportunities to scale up and do even more. If you put these three layers together, that's where we feel you create the overall ability to enhance resilience in countries. Okay, so now let's go into a couple of examples of where data can be used. So these are in situations where you have good connectivity, good data infrastructure, and a variety of applications to enhance resilience on the ground. All right, so first starting with digital ID. So digital ID allows you to better identify those individuals that have been impacted by a severe weather event. So for example, in Pakistan, a couple years ago, had a significant flooding events take place. During COVID, they were doing some cash transfers to vulnerable populations. It would take up to about 2 months to process a cash transfer. By using the digital ID during the recent flooding, they could do those transfers in 10 days or less. So when people are in a significant difficult situation, post a natural disaster, being able to get resources to them quickly is essential, and digital ID can facilitate that process. In the case of Ethiopia, we're also working with using the new digital ID system that's in place with some cash transfer programs for those communities that have been identified to be in sort of climate hotspots or areas that are experiencing on a more regular basis severe weather events. And these cash transfers then can be distributed in advance of severe weather events to help minimize the impact. The next example is around precision agriculture. So this is actually also an example that happens to come from Ethiopia. So one of the big investments that the agriculture sector makes is in fertilizers. And what we've been able to do in partnership with our agriculture colleagues and the government of Ethiopia is that using IoT devices, you can evaluate the soil quality. The government also has access to historical weather data. So by combining both the soil quality with historical weather data, you can make better predictions on the allocation for fertilizer use. What we've seen is both a 25% reduction in the amount of fertilizer that needs to be used, which improves soil quality and also generates more income for the farmers and also reduces overall costs for Ministry of Agriculture. We're now working with our colleagues to see about how we scale up this application. This is essentially taking machine learning or small AI models and putting them into practice to have big, significant impact. But again, it requires that you have that connectivity for the IoT devices and the data infrastructure to do the analysis. Early warning systems, we've talked a little bit about that. Some we've just heard from KDI about the examples with flooding and how you can use IoT sensors and other data points in order to better predict when that flooding is going to occur. Similarly, you can use this technology to think about early warning systems. And this is some of the work that we're also doing in the Maldives and a couple of the islands there in particular. The examples that I've listed here, one, it's very interesting in St. Vincent. So St. Vincent is a small island state in the Eastern Caribbean. It happens to be a volcanic island. So they actually The fiber optic cables that have been laid around the island to enhance internet connectivity are also very sensitive to seismic activity. So they're able to use the fiber optic cables to identify seismic behavior that predicts the potential for volcanic activity. They also are deploying some IoT devices. Using those tools, they were able to identify a forthcoming volcanic eruption, evacuate the community, and save those individuals' lives. So figuring out how to take advantage not only of new technologies and devices, but even some of the attributes that digital assets like fiber optic cables can offer on measuring seismic activity. The other example from Sierra Leone we'll go into a bit deeper this afternoon when we go into the shared data platform work there in particular. All right, and then the last example, just to give a bit of a precursor to where we'll go a bit of a deeper dive this afternoon, is in regards to landscape management. So we also think a lot about natural resource management and how to use digital solutions to enhance the management of those resources to improve resilience. In the case of the Maldives, as many of you may know, the island state, the majority of the dry land in the Maldives is only 1 meter or less above sea level. So coral reefs are essential. Most of the islands are coral atolls, so they're actually, the land is on top of coral reefs. They also have outer rings that buffer the rising sea levels on coral. Coral protects the islands from the rising sea levels. One of the challenges that the Maldives has, and this is not dissimilar from many countries, is that they collect quite a bit of information around coral data. But the majority of that data currently sits within Ministry of Environment. So it's not being used by Ministry of Transport when thinking about building new roads or bridges. It's not being used by by Ministry of Finance when it thinks about other planning activities. So part of our work, and with the support of KGGTF, is to unlock that potential of sharing that data, not just for improving the management of coral reefs, but for early warning systems and a variety of different use cases, which we'll discuss further this afternoon. And this is just my last slide to give a little bit of an indication of where you can find some more information of the work that we do on green digital. So by visiting our website, you'll find information there on a number of resources that we have available. I've put a few up there. As I mentioned, we do a lot of work on the infrastructure resilience side and increasingly around the adaptation or use cases of digital to enhance resilience. And very much looking forward to the discussion today and going deeper into these issues. Thank you very much.